Welcome back, friends. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is now over halfway through its second season, and it remains a dreary slog through a badly mangled Middle-earth. Still, this week's episode was a lot less cringy than last week's Easter egg-riddled disaster. At least there were no irritating Harfoots, or stores, and we didn't have to suffer through any more scenes with Amazon's version of Tom Bombadil. Galadriel shows up in a cage, surrounded by orcs, and she and Adar round out the episode with a brief exchange in which she pulls a very tiny dagger from her hair and takes him hostage. He tells her that he didn't bring her to his camp as a prisoner, but rather as a potential ally with a common enemy, Sauron. Remember, as you read this, you need to really roll those R's as hard as possible whenever they show up. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and all that jazz. That's about it for the elves outside of Eregion. In the Elven City, trouble is brewing. Celebrimbor goes from glowing achievement to emotional wreck in the space of this episode. Things start off great, with the elves and dwarves working together at last. The one big Easter egg here is the gate we all remember from Fellowship of the Ring. The doors whose riddle so stumped Gandalf, speak friend and enter, have been crafted and are on full display as the elves and dwarves celebrate their newfound friendship and collaboration. This is actually one of the things I don't mind seeing in a prequel. Little bits of history like this are fun to include. It's when they constantly crib dialogue and rip off entire scenes, like not Gandalf being eaten by Old Man Ironwood in last week's episode, that I start to really roll my eyes. Anatar is not pleased by all this camaraderie, though it's really just his continued efforts to manipulate Celebrimbor that causes him to act dour. He tells the elvish smith, merely incapable of celebration when the people most endangered by Mordor remain so vulnerable. He wants the rings of power to be made for mortal men, but Celebrimbor remains unbending. I'll make them myself, Anatar says, and off to work he goes. Celebrimbor, meanwhile, has written to Gil-galad, telling him falsely that he has ceased work on any further rings and his forge has been shut down. This is also puzzling to me. If Celebrimbor knows how to make rings now, why wouldn't the elves want him to keep making them? He could simply make them without Anatar at this point. And that's another problem this show gets badly wrong. I've mentioned this before, but having Celebrimbor craft the 3 elven rings first really ruins this entire storyline. If the show had even bothered with timelines that made sense, Anatar would have shown up early on and begun instructing Celebrimbor in the finer points of ring craft, rune craft, magic imbuements, and so forth. They would have made many minor rings first. Then they would have made the 9 and the 7, and only after all this would Celebrimbor become suspicious of the Lord of Gifts. Thanks for watching video. See you soon, in the next video.